Part 2 of the AFC West Preview of the Bears Talk Underground is brought to you by SeatGeek. Let SeatGeek take the confusion out of your ticket buying experience. Instead of shopping dozens of sites all over the web, let SeatGeek do the work for you. Their app scans the web for the best deals to your favorite game, concert, or show and rates them on a scale from 0 to 10 to let you know if you're getting the best bang for your buck. Use promo code ACAA at checkout to receive $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off the first purchase. So what are you waiting for? Promo code ACAA to get the deal. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. Part 2 of the AFC West Preview is also brought to you by MyBookie. Summer is the best time of year. We're about to run headlong into Major League Baseball, but we'll always have MMA. There's to be some golf out there, and we still have a couple of games left in the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals, although it looks like those are about to be wrapped up by St. Louis and Toronto, respectively. Hopefully I didn't just jinx them. But whether you like MLB, MMA, golf, or anything else, MyBookie is the place to bet. Their mobile site is easy to use and allows you to make bets from anywhere. No hassle, no waiting line, no need to get off the couch. MyBookie wants you to have as much fun as possible this summer, and what's more fun than winning money while watching sports? Just visit mybookie.ag today to get started, then try your luck at outsmarting the odds makers. But wait, if you deposit with promo code BEARS100, MyBookie will give you a 50% deposit bonus. That's promo code BEARS100 for a 50% bonus. Putting down 100, now you've got 150. At MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid. And here we are, part number 2 of our AFC West preview. Had a great conversation with your boy Q to get the AFC West started, talking about the Oakland Raiders. Now we go to Mile High Country to talk about the Denver Broncos, and we bring back one of my very first guests ever on the podcast, Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann from the Mile High Report on SB Nation. She and I, you guys are going to, I think you're going to like, especially the first chunk of the interview. We kind of got stuck in a spot because the two of us were complaining about our last coaching regimes. She was talking about the Vance Joseph thing. Obviously, we were complaining about John Fox, and obviously she can feel our pain when it comes to John Fox and the things that they did and did not do in his time in Chicago. And then eventually we moved on to the offseason, the draft, and what 2019 has to hold for the Denver Broncos. Always love talking to Laurie. Look forward to having her back early on in the season. We played Denver week number 2 this year. We had a fantastic time talking to her. But first, we'll do news and notes, so let's get the show started. It's the AFC West Preview, part number 2. So let's get it.
Hang up the telephone. I hear the dial tone ringing out loud, and I don't know why.
Part number 2 of our AFC West Preview. And part number 4 of our 14 opponent preview episodes. And here we are. What's going on, everybody? Larry back for part 2 of the AFC West preview of the Bears Talk Underground. Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann from SB Nation's Mile High Report will be joining us here in a few moments. For those of you who've been with the podcast a while, Laurie was, I think, my second guest ever on the podcast back in 2015. When I first started doing the interviews, the way that I did them originally was for our divisional opponents, which in 2015 was the AFC West and the NFC West. I kind of did it last minute. So the first person that I was able to get a response from, they represented the division. And in this case, it was Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann. We talked to her about the Broncos, and we also kind of touched on the rest of the division, focusing on the Broncos. Did the same thing with Jess Root and the Arizona Cardinals for the NFC West, and then I did one show apiece for the Lions, the Vikings, and the with the Packers. And 2016 was the year that I did an episode for every team. But Laurie was the second guest we ever had on the show, and she was able to come back and had a nice lengthy conversation, as I said in the intro right after the ads. We kind of got hung up for the first 20 minutes or so just talking about the troubles that they had with Vance Joseph and where things went wrong and why it went off the rails the way they did, and kind of how that paralleled some of the coaching nightmares that we've had. Not really even since Lovey left town, but I mean, obviously Mark Trestman was a nightmare, especially in year number 2. John Fox just never really seemed to get his footing in Chicago. He'd have his moments here, and it was just, but 2016 was a disaster, 3-13. 2017 was just, gross incompetence. There was nothing that felt right about 2017. It just happened to work out that Mitch and Tariq being drafted that year, Eddie Jackson being drafted that year, there were signs, there were things there that kept us watching on Sunday, but overall, no one was really looking forward to it because it would be the same old, and the frustration with the offense and so on and so forth. And Laurie and I get into that quite a bit, where our 2017 squad kind of mirrored what they had to go through last year, in that their defense was adequate, their defense did well, their defense did everything they could to get the offense the football, but their offense was so bad that their defense just had to go right back out there and try to do it again. That's 2017 in a nutshell right there. We had zero offense, we had no help, and like our defense, I talked about the Carolina game and how it was a miracle that we won that, and thanks to Eddie Jackson, we did win that game. And those were games like that throughout the entire season, and why we're happier now, and why Laurie and company are looking forward to what Vic Fangio holds as he takes the mantle as a head coach for the very first time with the Broncos. But real quick, before we get to Laurie, a couple of news and notes for you guys here. We'll start off with the kickers, and apparently the Bears are taking a different tact with the kickers in OTA practices and such. They've incorporated a little something called the Augusta silence when it comes to the kickers. I mean, I guess that, the only thing that can here's the thing about being an athlete performing in a pressure situation is that usually when you're in a situation like that, the crowds are probably at a deafening pitch. You can hear them, but it all kind of blends together in a way that you can kind of zone it out. Because there's so much noise, you can't particularly hear one thing. So what Matt Nagy and company are doing in OTA practices, or what they have been doing, is Augusta silence, and I guess Augusta would be a reference to the golf course, therefore complete silence. And the only thing that can make you nervous than all of that noise, knowing that all of those people are watching, is all of those people not making a sound. You can even hear yourself breathing, kind of thing. And just imagine how nerve-wracking that must be, to be in the situation that you're in as the Bears kicker, trying to win the job against two other guys right now, because we currently have 3 kickers vying for the position. And apparently this is something that's working as far as putting the kickers in a pressure situation without actually having to apply pressure. You know what I mean? So that's something that the Bears are incorporating with our 3 kickers right now. It's Chris Blewett, or Bluet, or however it's pronounced, Eddie Pinheiro, and Elliot Fry, or something like one of the kicker from the AAF. Those are the three kickers that are giving it a shot right now. Secondly, it's not Bears news, but it's something that could greatly affect us in the next couple of years. And here's the thing. It's something that could affect us in the next couple of years if things go well. And what I'm referring to is the extension that Carson Wentz got yesterday from the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz signed a 4-year contract extension worth $32 million a season. It's $128 million over 4 years to extend at the end of his rookie contract, which I believe is this year or next year. And it's going to keep him in Philly till I think like 2024 or something like that. So it's like this is his 4th season. They're going to pick up his 5th-year option, and then they're tacking on 4 more years to that. So Carson Wentz is going to be the Eagles quarterback for the next 6 seasons. And that contract, not only was it 4 extra years for $128 million, aka $32 million per year. It was guaranteed money of $107 million. Now, if all goes well in the next year or two, because the Bears, obviously, this is year number 3 for Mitch. Next year, the Bears will have to pick up the 5th-year option before season 4 begins for Mitch, and we're going to have to start thinking about this. But $107 million, $32 million per season. He's not the highest-paid quarterback per year. I think that's still Russell Wilson. I think he's up to $35 million when he signed that extension with the Seahawks here in the offseason. But that's the most guaranteed money I think anybody's gotten. $107 million. What a bananas figure. And so, I mean, it's not Bears news, but it's something that could greatly affect us with Carson Wentz setting the market there. Carson Wentz was the 2016 number 2 overall pick. Mitch was the 2017 number 2 overall pick. So this could be something that we're talking about a year from now. If this year goes well and Mitch balls out like a lot of us think he will, year number 2 in the system, if everything that we've been hearing about how he's been performing in OTAs comes to fruition when the games start to count, then this could be something that we're talking about a year from now, is how Mitch got $110 million, and he's going to be our quarterback till 2025 because he's got year number 4, the 5th-year option, and another extension on top of that. We've got Mitch for the next 5-6 years locked up. We don't have to worry about who our quarterback's going to be, and it cost us the King's ransom. So now Ryan Pace gets to figure out how he's going to be able to pay everyone and keep this team together as best he possibly can. So, like I said, not Bears news, but something that definitely will greatly affect us going forward. And as I said already, if everything goes well, this is a situation that we'll find ourselves in the very near future. So I honestly can see it going that way. I am optimistic about what Mitch can do, what he will do this year. So I anticipate this being a conversation we might be having a year from now, that Mitch is in extension talks and he signed for a very long time to be in a Bear uniform. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, last night on Friday, the Bears started the weekend-long celebration, their centennial celebration in Chicago. And the main event of the festivities on Friday night was the unveiling of the vintage uniform that they've been talking to us about since April, when they did the April Fool's joke about everyone wearing three numbers. For, Mitch would be 110, Akeem Hicks would be 196, Khalil Mack would be 152, etc. And that obviously was an April Fool's joke. Well, it turns out that the leak that we saw from Dick's Sporting Goods was the real deal. That is, in fact, the jersey that the Bears will be wearing in 2 games this year. The first one in Week 4 against the Vikings. I believe it's Week 4. It's a home game against the Vikings. And then Week 13, 14, whenever the Thursday night game after Thanksgiving is against the Cowboys. Those are the 2 times the Bears will be wearing the uniform, which is kind of funny, actually, because it's a white jersey. So you're thinking it's an away uniform, but instead that is the uniform the Bears will wear at home. So I guess we'll be seeing the Cowboys wearing those ugly midnight blue jerseys that they wear when their opponents wear white. But, well, what do I think? Well, I am the self-professed uniform snob, and at first glance, I told you guys before, when I saw the leak, I like the jersey. I didn't find anything wrong with it. I like the stripes, the orange and blue stripes on the shoulders and on the armbands. The regular blocky varsity numbers, just plain navy blue, I thought was good. It's a simple white jersey with those stripes on the shoulders. The picture from the old school player back in 1936, which I believe was Bronco Nagurski that was modeling the uniform. It had that helmet with the orange stripes on it. At first glance, I hated it. I absolutely hated the orange stripes on the helmet, and I wasn't crazy about the socks. Upon further review and multiple viewings later, I don't hate the stripes. I could get used to the stripes. It's the socks. I can't get past the socks. So we go from the helmet. Okay, I can handle the helmet. The jersey is cool. You can't go wrong with just plain or solid navy blue pants. It's just solid navy blue, no stripes or anything on the pants. It all ends for me at the knees, because from the knees down, you got those horizontal stripes with the orange and the blue. Now, here's another issue. It actually kind of depends on how this is going to look when the Bears get on the field, because the photo of the player in 1936, and I'm going to say it's Nagurski, the orange is what's so off-putting in the modern version of it. The orange was much lighter and much closer to what I feel like the Bears' orange is. The orange that they had on the helmet last night and on the the horizontal stripes on the socks was like a much deeper, much richer, a lot more red in the orange. It's very striking, and maybe that's what I find, for lack of a better term, offensive about the socks, especially. The orange is so bright. It's almost like the mile-long orange that hunters wear so they don't get shot in the field. You see that distinctive orange, but just imagine a bit more. It looks very much like the orange that the Cleveland Browns wear. Like, it used to be a little bit lighter, but when they came out with the new uniforms, the orange was much deeper, much richer. It had a lot more red in it than it had before. And that's what was so striking about the helmet and the socks upon first view. But going back, I can get used to the helmet. The helmet, I think, is fine. It's the socks I have a huge problem with. They are hideously bad. They are just terrible. I think if we'd have gone with our modern socks on those uniforms, I think that would look a hell of a lot better, quite frankly. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. And the other thing that I'm kind of torn about is that when they showed like the video, it was Tariq Cohen in the uniform. When they showed like the video of them wearing the uniform, the orange was much softer. It was easier on the eyes. It wasn't as bright or as striking as it appeared to be in the photo and the footage of. It was Kyle Fuller last night who was modeling the uniform at the celebration, and that orange really, I don't want to say it popped, but it really stuck out. It was like a deeper, much redder orange than I'm used to seeing on a Bear uniform. It really sticks out, and not in a good way. So the socks are awful no matter what tone they're in. I think if they went with something closer to what's the C logo on the helmet, I don't think the oranges are the same. I really don't. I think they went with a deeper color in the orange, and that's what's so striking and so off-putting to me. So the uniform is fine from the head to the knees. Once we get down from the knees going into the socks are horrendous, and I don't like it. So the jersey, I like it a lot. I like the jersey a lot. The pants, like I said, can't go wrong with solid navy blue, but the socks got to go, man. The socks are absolutely terrible. And I saw a poll on Twitter. The Bears posted, "What's your favorite part of the uniform?" 24% said socks. So 24%, a little effed in the head, if you ask me. If they think the socks are the best thing about that uniform, oof, I have concerns about you. So anyway, so there you have it. The Centennial uniform, the 1936 team is what they're commemorating there. We'll see those uniforms twice against the Vikings and the Cowboys for home games this year. So the Vikings, I think, is week 4 at home, and the Cowboys, I believe, is week 14. It's when we play those back-to-back Thursday games. We play the Detroit on Thanksgiving, and then we come back the following Thursday, and we play the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football at home in those uniforms. So that is how that's going to go down. So hopefully the socks will grow on me so I won't dread week 4 and week 14. But I don't see that happening. I really don't. So anyway, that will do it for our little news and notes section. Going to go ahead and dive into this talk with Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann, coming to us from the Mile High Report on SB Nation. Had a great talk with her. So here it is, without further ado, myself, Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann from the Mile High Report, previewing the 2019 Denver Broncos. Part 2 of our AFC West opponent preview has us heading over to Mile High Country and the Denver Broncos, and back for the first time in a long time, one of my very first guests ever on the show from SB Nation's Mile High Report, Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann. Welcome back to the show. We have so missed you.
Thank you, Larry. It's great to be back.
So, Laurie, the last time that we talked, we happened to be we had just hired the former head coach of the Denver Broncos, John Fox, to take over. And we had a brand new general manager, and he was doing things. And it just so happens that now the next time that we talk, you have just hired the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. So what's up with that? Why? You know, we steal from you. You got to steal back from us. What's up with that?
I have to say, I imagine even Bears fans would agree that we got the better end of that trade.
Yes, you did.
I do remember, didn't I tell you my favorite ridiculous line from John Fox that he tended to use in all his press conferences with us?
It was the thing located behind the nipple?
Yes!
Yeah.
How many times did he use that?
I know one for sure because I brought it to your attention. I remember tweeting it to you on Twitter. I showed you that he said it, so he went ahead and he used it. The thing he uses that thing behind the nipple. Like what?
It's such a bizarre reference. Like, come on, Coach. What? Didn't someone stop you the first time you tried to use that one?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody in the PR department was like, Coach, let's not talk about nipples during press conferences.
Yeah,
especially
when everyone's confused for 5 minutes while you're talking about it. They're like, finally, oh, the heart.
Yeah, or at least nobody hears the thing he says after. Like, he just said nipple, right?
Yes.
They're all looking around at each other. What the hell?
Exactly.
But you hired Vic Fangio, and that was because the 2-year experiment that was Vance Joseph did not work out, and so much to the point where John Elway, your general manager, like publicly admitted it was a mistake or a regret of his to hire Vance Joseph. You know, what's the story with that?
Well, let me start by saying I was one of the people who, when we were looking for a new coach after Kubiak left,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people really wanted Kyle Shanahan, and on paper, and of course, looking at what Shanahan had done at the Falcons and obviously previously, before at the Redskins, like, you knew this was an up and coming star. But I had a feeling that there's no way Elway will be able to work with Shanahan, because Shanahan, like his father, knows exactly what he wants, and he will insist on it, and he will not work well with John Elway. And so I felt like, Vance Joseph is going to be the kind of coach that Elway will work better with, because he's a brand new, head coach. He's a defensive coach. And so that John Elway always likes defense, ironically. And he can help make, suggestions or give advice on offense, even though that's not really his exact role. But we all know John Elway is involved with that.
Sure.
But it just turned out that Vance was just way too unprepared to be for the role of head coach. And I still maintain, and I did, and so that, well, let me back up. And so then, that first year was the wheels just fell off. We won the first 3 games. We're all feeling great. And even Vance Joseph was like, pump the brakes. All we did was win 3 games. And then we had a bye that year. We had an early bye, and then we lost like 9 games or something. It's something ridiculous. And so, um, going into the second year, most of Broncos country was calling for Vance Joseph's head. Like, get rid of this coach. We didn't want him in the first place. Fire him now. And Elway was, I think felt like he didn't give Vance Joseph the best opportunity to be a good head coach, because he walked into a disaster of a quarterback situation, which became even more of a disaster than anybody could have anticipated. And that's a tough thing for a first-year head coach, especially a first-year head coach who hasn't had to deal with a quarterback scenario before. So I backed Elway on his decision to keep Vance Joseph, because I thought, this is the year where Vance either, makes it or breaks it. Like, he proves this year whether he can do this or not, because we're not going to have, we brought in Case Keenum, which we can talk about that later, but at least we didn't have a quarterback competition, like who's going to be number one, and go back and forth and have to figure it out week to week. And it was so insane. So I think Elway really thought, and I agreed with this, that it wasn't a fair assessment of Vance Joseph's ability as head coach, given what he walked into. So this past year, giving him that second chance, I didn't think was necessarily a wrong decision or short-sighted, or, Elway just not wanting to admit he was wrong. I think it was a genuine thought that I need to give my coach a better situation for him to coach in. And he basically did give him that, even though Case Keenum didn't really work out. But what we saw throughout the season was Vance Joseph has no idea how to manage the game. And I think in retrospect, that also meant he didn't totally understand how to manage the week, in terms of practice. And I think a lot of people underestimate this, that just because you have somebody who has a great defensive mind or a great offensive mind, or they're really good at whatever position, head coach is a whole different role. There's a whole different set of skills you need to have. It always helps if you really understand football, right? Being a mastermind of the game does not hurt you. But you also have to balance a lot of other roles. You are in front of the press 5 days a week. You have to manage all the different personalities on the whole team, from coaches to players to different positions, from backup to the starter, versus just being in charge of your unit or just being in charge of your side of the ball. And so like during the week, I think if Vance Joseph was getting in and trying to teach people how to do certain technique, he was really good. And he understood sort of different strategies about different defenses or different offenses, but he could not ever put it together in the game when it's real time and you have to make a decision on what's the smart thing to do. And every single time it came down to a decision that's on the line, he made the wrong one. It was unbelievable. Like, I'm sure you didn't pay a ton of attention to the Broncos last year in terms of actual games, because who would unless you had to? But, and you had your own great team to follow. But
Indeed.
we had a couple situations that they were so ridiculous that you had to laugh, because you're like, I felt like my 12-year-old could go down there and coach better, because the common sense thing to do would be, hey, should we kick a 60-yard field goal into the wind 4 seconds before the half? No, we shouldn't do that. And and then we would get down. He would go for field goals when we were so far away, and it didn't matter. And then we'd be on the 4th and 1, and he wouldn't go for a touchdown. Like, you gotta, 4th and goal, and just so many bad decisions. Our final game of the year, we decide literally to do an onside kick on our kickoff. On our kickoff to start the game, we did an onside kick.
Wow.
Like, I'm done. I'm done with this guy. And I had been one of his defenders just because I felt like he needs to prove it. And then he totally fumbled the ball. So we all talk about it now that, there were a few games where just one different decision probably would have been a win, or, likely could have been a win.
Right.
And so we could have been 8-8 or 9-7 easily with just a few different things going our way and, just making the right decision instead of a boneheaded one. But if we had done that, we might not have gotten rid of Vance Joseph. we might not have had the number 10 pick in the draft. And so our situation right now would have been much worse had it been a little bit better back during the season.
Right. It's a 6 in one hand, half in the other, half a dozen in the other kind of situation.
Absolutely.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Kind of thing. We talk all the time. Different scenarios that the Bears could have done if they had done this, or we'd signed this guy, or we didn't sign, we make this pick, and so on and so forth. Then we probably would have been better. It's like, but yeah, then we'd probably still have John Fox. We wouldn't have Nagy. We wouldn't have traded for this guy, and so on and so forth. So it's like, yeah, everything happened the way that it was supposed to. So let's just look forward instead of looking back, and just keep going. It's fun to think about what if, but if you had the power to try to put all that into motion, I would tell you not to, because I would rather have the future that we have now than go backwards and try to see if it turned out the way we would have hoped to. In that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
the only thing that I do hope or would have wished is I feel like our first home game against the Chiefs, we could have won that game if Case Keenum didn't overthrow Demaryius Thomas, 2 yards from the end zone, which would have been a game-winning touchdown. And had we beaten the Chiefs that early, that would have given us a lot of momentum, and it probably would have deflated them a little bit. And I think for both teams, the season might have turned out a little differently. And that, because it's such a rivalry, it kills me that we couldn't do that. But I always go back to what you just said, I would trade a better future for just one win, except maybe against the Chiefs.
Yeah, there's always a game in there. In 2017, I believe. Yeah, 2017. First 8 games of the season, like when the schedule came out in 2017, John Fox's last year, all we heard about was, this is the first 8 games for the Bears. This is the most difficult schedule in the entire league. And this football team with the rookie, we drafted Trubisky in the first round. We have zero offensive talent around him except for Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, and we have to go through this game. There are like 4 or 5, playoff teams in there. We got the Packers in there, and it was just a disaster. Somehow we go 3-5 in that first 8-game stretch.
Yeah.
Then we have a bye week. Then week number 10, we're at home against a Aaron Rodgers-less Green Bay Packer team, and they kicked our ass, Laurie. I went on a 44-minute profanity-laced tirade on my show. I could not hold it in anymore. I was like, I'm done. I am done. I can't do this anymore, watching this offense over and over again while we have this defense that is balling out and has nothing to show for it because they're playing 40 minutes a game because our offense is garbage. And it's like I just lost it, which ironically is a lot of my listeners' favorite episode of all time. So, I went bananas, 44 minutes. There none of the regular segments I do during the show, which is for 40 minutes. I lost it. It's I'm done. I cannot believe we lost this game. It was set up so perfect for us to win. We went 3-5 in that first stretch. We barely won 2 more games throughout the rest of the year, and John Fox was mercilessly finally let go at the end of the year, and we move on from him. But that was that. I'm done. I am done. How did we lose this game? in everything. I went bananas from it. So it's like I get where you're coming from. I had no idea it was that bad though with Vance Joseph. I know that it wasn't working out. Obviously, the Broncos weren't winning football games, and I guess I was kind of blinded by how badly the season was going by the feel good story that was Philip Lindsay last year.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we talked about this the other day, that the season in 2018 was better. I mean, we had a tough schedule too, and we were, again, we didn't have a strong quarterback. So anytime you don't have that, you're really struggling. And I have this soapbox that I go on with people all the time on our blog about Peyton Manning during that Super Bowl year, because people are like, Peyton Manning's done. He can't throw the football. You guys won with your defense. I'm like, of course we did. Absolutely we won with the defense. But you forget what Peyton Manning still did.
In the playoffs.
But even in obviously the playoffs, but even when he wasn't throwing well, and we're still winning the games in the playoffs or the beginning of that season or whatever, he doesn't have the zip on the ball. He doesn't have the distance anymore. He doesn't have the arm, but he still has the brain, and he still could outthink the other team to the point that he could neutralize them long enough that even we could stay on the field and get a field goal, which, people overlooked that because we weren't scoring touchdowns and, blah, blah, Manning's done, get Brock Osweiler out there, blah, blah, blah. And then the next year when we have Trevor Siemian, for the next 2 years actually, and we would go 3 and out like almost every time our offense got on the field, and the defense is playing 45 minutes a game,
right.
And everyone's like, the defense can't do anything because they're tired, the offense can't even stay on the field. And I was like, ha, I told you so. That's what Manning did. Manning stayed on the field for 12 minutes, and sometimes he only got a field goal, sometimes we still punted, for crying out loud. But he allowed the defense to be amazing by doing what he was able to do, just because he was still smart enough to do the things you need to do. Like, he could throw the ball away. He could hand it off quickly. He could do like a shovel pass that nobody was planning, just to keep the ball moving forward, that nobody has been able to do since. We've had such poor quarterbacking that our defense has been exhausted. So 2017 was just terrible. 2018, we actually were better, but because we still had no quarterback and therefore very little offense except for Philip Lindsay, he would be close in games, but we could not win. And so it was very frustrating to feel like I said earlier, a couple of different decisions by the coach a couple times, a throw by Case Keenum that is not 6 feet over DT's head, then we win those games because we were in them, unlike the year before.
Right.
So, but what was bad that you wouldn't really see unless you were truly a fan paying attention during the week was just Vance Joseph always came across like, it's been a good practice. We're prepared. We're going in. We got a good game plan. He said that a lot.
Oh.
And we get to the game and be like, game plan? Did you plan any of this? I don't know. How do you not know that you don't do a field goal from, the 60 yard or the 65 yards, like into the wind? Like, we have a great kicker, but that's ridiculous. And in the situation where that happened, because of course we missed it and there were still 30 seconds left, and I think it was the Texans, they got the ball on our 40 and they marched in and got a field goal before the half. Like, you're such an idiot. So, it was a very frustrating season to watch him make poor decision after poor decision in a game where our defense was still trying so hard to win the game. And they held the Chiefs to under 30 points, which was one of the two teams to do it all year. They played every team tough. We just had zero offense and zero coaching.
Yeah, that sounds like the 2017 Bears right there. It absolutely does. I mean, we had studs on defense. I mean, there was a game we played against the Carolina Panthers. We won the game 17-3. Our offense, our quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, his rookie season, attempted 7 passes in that game. We only scored touchdowns on defense thanks to 2 Eddie Jackson. One
Yeah.
was a fumble return. The other was a pick six for a touchdown. And our defense was on the field for legitimately about 75 to 80 plays in that game. It's like eventually they're going to crumble underneath this because our offense goes out there. We run 4 plays tops, and then we give the ball back to Carolina, and our defense just would not surrender in that game. And they, it's just that was pretty much every game throughout 2017 was you're sitting there wondering what the hell is Fox and Dole Loggins, who was our offensive coordinator after Gase left for Miami. It's like, well, it's Jordan Howard right, Jordan Howard left. Try to throw the ball on third down, and then the next drive would be Tariq Cohen right, Tariq Cohen left, and then try to throw the ball on third and punt. Is like over and over and over again. And defenses were playing short yardage defense against us, 8-9 guys in the box because they knew we weren't going to throw the ball. And it's just 3 plays and out, and then the defense is on the field for 12 minutes and somehow only allowed a field goal, which allowed this horrendous offense of ours to still manage to be in the game somehow.
Yeah.
And we were always hanging in tough and then crumbling in the fourth quarter because our defense would run out of gas or the offense would make a mistake that we couldn't afford. And, that's what – and we somehow, like I said, it was a miracle that we won 5 games that year with some of the way those games turned out. And like I said a minute ago, that Packer game was my cup runneth over. I'd had it at that point. We can't do it anymore. Can't do it.
I know. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. We'd have the same thing where the offense would lose the ball. I mean, they wouldn't even be out there for a minute and a half. The defense is like, okay. And they'd get a fumble recovery or they'd get a sack or they'd do, or they just hold them. Our defense would have, some amazing red zone stands. And even when they'd hold them to just a field goal, that's a big win when you're starting on your 20-yard line because your quarterback throws an interception or something. And then they'd be feeling good and they'd get off the field and give the offense good field position or whatever. And then the offense would be done 3 plays later. It's like, I'm kind of surprised our defense just didn't beat the ever-loving crap out of every player on the offense.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like
we're done with you.
That's probably the only good coaching that I guess you can give Vic Fangio credit. He was the defensive coordinator, but that's probably the only positive coaching that John Fox did. He somehow managed to keep the defense from beating the crap out of the offense, from making them play 60 to 80 plays every single week and doing nothing with the opportunities the defense would give them. And you gave me some ugly flashbacks a few moments ago when you mentioned Vance Johnson talking about how well practice was during the week, because that was Mark Trestman's line week in and week out about how well they practiced, the best week of practice we've had all season. And then after the game, when we lost by 40 points, we lost 55-14 on national television to the Packers, followed 51-12 or something like that against the Patriots the week after that. And then you would come in and be like, I don't know what happened. We had a great week of practice. It's like, all right. It's like, you don't know what happened. And, just no idea what went wrong. And like, well, there are like 40 things, dude. Watch the tape. You'll see every single one of them. We all watched it. I can list a few if you want me to, kind of thing. But I got ugly flashbacks when you talked about Vance Joseph and just kind of being dumbfounded after the game. Like, I don't know what happened. We practiced well all week. Like, did you though? Did you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, great. Practice, having a good practice, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'd get on people in our blog when they'd pile on, we had a good practice. I'm like, that's important. It's just for Vance Joseph to always be confused. That's the exact thing. He had no idea that practice, there's certain things you do in practice, but it's much more about the prep and the game plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys know football, right? Then doesn't mean they can't learn more. But the week of practice, you're not going full out. You're not playing an opponent. You're playing your own guys. So it's different. It's a lot more about really studying the team you're about to play and coming up with the scheme and the plan you're going to use and running through that. It's less about how well you played against the other guys.
Right.
I felt like the preparation was so poor. And again, like, we were talking off air about Bill Belichick. You see that guy, he comes in with a weaker team half the time, which seems odd, but he does. He has a great quarterback, but beyond that, he often has lesser people on the defensive line, the offensive line, and game in and game out, that guy beats you because he figured out how to make his weaker players not play, not have to be dominant, and use his stronger players in a different way. Like, he always figures out how to beat the other team based on what he has. And enough coaches don't do that. They just work with their team and they think practicing, oh, they threw good passes. Great, we're going to win this game. No, you're not. do you have, a pass rusher, two, edge rushers coming at you within 2 seconds? Not really. You don't really do that during your own practice.
Right.
So it's totally different. It's a lot more about your prep, I think, than it is about your practice.
Right. So before we get our blood pressure up, let's talk about the future. I mean, even though we'll probably need a dose of medication afterwards, talking about Tressman and Fox and Vance Joseph and all of their various mistakes over the years. We look forward to the free agent or the offseason period, and the most interesting move, aside from hiring Fangio himself, would be the Broncos making the trade to bring Joe Flacco to town when he had worn out his welcome in Baltimore, lost his job to the rookie Lamar Jackson. They're moving on with him. Flacco becomes expendable. The Broncos kind of jump on the opportunity to bring him into the fold, and supposedly now John Elway thinks that your quarterback situation has solved for the first time since 2015 when Peyton Manning was doing it on one leg.
Right. So, yeah, I wouldn't say our quarterback situation is solved.
Yeah,
I do think it is improved.
Okay.
So I'm okay with the move because I was completely dissatisfied with Case Keenum. I was not in favor of that when it happened to begin with. So it turned out how I expected. And so, we're paying a little bit less to have Flacco, which I think is an improvement over Case Keenum. And we essentially got the best quarterback that was out there to be had. I mean, there weren't many options. So we came away improving our offense, and I think that's about the best you can say. Everything so far, coming out of mini camp and OTAs is, how great of a leader Flacco is and how strong he looks and how he threw an 80-yard pass, cross 80-yard pass downfield across his body. And they say that kind of stuff every year. We always get the, quarterback looks great. He's throwing dimes. The spiral is so tight. And again, just like the practice thing, it really doesn't matter until they play a game. So I've stopped getting excited about all the hurrahs during minicamp.
Oh, yeah.
But I do genuinely feel like we will be better with Flacco than we've been for the last 3 years. And I'm hoping and I'm crossing my fingers that, he stays healthy and therefore can be the sufficient quarterback we need, as kind of a bridge until, possibly Drew Lock does come in to be a franchise QB. I'm holding out any kind of prediction on that one, though.
So when I was trying to look up the free agent moves, bringing players in, aside from the Broncos pulling the switcheroo on the press, and that everyone thought Adrian Amos was destined for the Broncos, and instead it ended up being Bryce Callahan instead. I didn't really see too many moves. I see you guys brought in Juwan James, the tackle from the Dolphins. You got another corner in Kareem Jackson from Houston, and then bringing in Callahan, the trade for Flacco. Was that it? I mean, as far as bringing in new guys?
Basically. I mean, we added a guy just yesterday, who's going to be a, third stringer on the O-line. So, that basically we were just fortifying the defense a little bit. We thankfully signed Chris Harris Jr. To another year. only a year, which bit of a bummer, but at least we've got that year. And so when you look at what we needed to do, we really didn't need too much in terms of starters other than quarterback and secondary. And so bringing in Callahan and Jackson was key, and keeping Chris Harris was key, because it was really our secondary that just was so depleted last year, and really Chris Harris Jr. was about the only cornerback who could stay with anybody, and Justin Simmons and Will Parks, who are both very talented, the way they were used wasn't, especially Justin Simmons, who's a safety. They had him playing all over the field, and it just didn't really utilize his talent. So he didn't perform as well as I think he was expected to, or he would have liked. But bringing Fangio in, I mean, you can tell me, but we're very excited about how Fangio, I mean, he's clearly running the defense.
Yeah.
And how he uses these guys, not in anything very complicated, but with a lot of disguises, so that they all seem to really have bought in a big way to his idea for the defense, and a lot of them feel like their skill set is going to be much more utilized in Fangio's defense than it has been the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, of course, except for week 2 when we come to town, what the defense is going to be capable of, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we circle around to 2019. But like what I was alluding to before is that you've only added a few players, but when I started looking at the people that were gone, it kind of looked like some kind of a roster purge. Matt Paradise is gone. Billy Turner signed with Green Bay. Bradley Roby is out. Shane Ray, the first-round pick in 2015, the last time we talked, he's gone. Brandon Marshall, a lifelong Bronco, ends up signing with the Raiders, so now he can be confused for somebody else there for a while.
He was actually a Jaguar first.
Was he?
Yes.
Okay, my mistake.
He was just he's been very associated with the Broncos because he's been very
There you go.
Yeah. He came over with Jack Del Rio, actually, brought him over after Jack came over to be our defensive coordinator with Fox. He brought Brandon Marshall from the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. So, of all those people we lost, the one I was most upset about was Matt Paradise. Mm-hmm. I think that was a mistake probably to let him go. I think, we have struggled so much in our offensive line, and Matt was always the anchor, and every quarterback, including Manning, which I would say is the most important one, talked about how smart Matt Paradise was and how good he was at picking up the defense and, cueing in his other linemen and helping the quarterback. And to me, that's hard to replace. So, and I don't think I think essentially the Broncos ended up offering him about as much as he got at Carolina, maybe a little bit less guaranteed. I don't remember the details, but I was a little ticked at Elway for not ponying up a little bit better and keeping Paradise, because he was a leader. He was part of the Super Bowl team. Like, he's just the kind of guy you want to keep around for both his on the field talent as well as his off the field leadership. So that's the only one I think we're going to miss. Bradley Roby was hit and miss. He could be a really good defensive back, but he could also kind of zone out and totally miss his assignment. And I think he'll be good. Hopefully, did he go to the Texans? I think so. I think I really hope he does well. Shane Ray was pretty much he was hurt a lot. He was always talking about how good he was going to be, and it just never came through. So I don't think we're going to miss him really at all. And I would have liked to have kept Shaq Barrett. That would have been good too for our defense. But really, of all those, and Brandon Marshall, I really like him as a player. I've always appreciated what he did, what he stood for with his protest and how he handled it in Denver and how he handled a lot of people regarding that. but as a linebacker, I felt like he just wasn't, we need more. So I was kind of surprised we didn't get one in the draft early on. I was one of the people looking forward to Devin Bush or as our guy. But anyway, I think if Fangio didn't feel like we needed to keep him, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. He built the Bear defense up from scratch, and there were some iffy moves in there, and it's like, why would we hang on to Crevon LeBlanc and Bryce Callahan, and those guys have had outstanding careers so far in the NFL, and Bryce Callahan might have an issue about staying on the field from time to time, but when he's out there, he's one of the best in the league. So good luck with him. I was sad to see him go, actually, because it was a tough weighing. If we thought we'd come away with at least one of them. We'd re-sign Amos, we'd re-sign Callahan, and my stance was Callahan I think is the better player, but Adrian Amos is more reliable. He's the guy that's been healthy. He hasn't been banged up and miss a game here, miss a game there, and we lost Bryce Callahan for the last 5 games of the season with that broken foot against the Rams. So it's like if we're looking for impact and overall better player, Callahan's the way to go, but can we trust him? And he's getting older, so he's not old, but he's getting older, and as you get older,
I know
your body will betray you.
Guys in their 30s.
Yeah. So let's talk about the draft, and more so with you because you were there in Nashville amongst the madness that was 600,000 people on one street in Nashville. Talk about that.
It was awesome. So the Broncos had decided, because every team who chooses their sort of 20 people to be in the inner circle for the draft did something different. So how the Bears chose their fans, I don't know. But the Broncos basically just chose some of their longtime season ticket holders. And one of my friends, who I've really just known since I started blogging, but we've had lots of conversations on Twitter and over through the blog, and he was one of the chosen season ticket holders, and he had an extra ticket, so he gave it to me, which was completely awesome.
Right.
And so it was just for the first day that he had tickets for the whole thing, but the inner circle was the first night for round 1. So and so it's really cool. The Broncos section, thank goodness, was under the kind of the little makeshift roof that they have for for the whole broadcast. But because it poured down rain, which I assume you could tell from TV.
Oh, sure.
So I'm sure they showed that shot going back the whole street. All those people were still there, just had their umbrellas up or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were lucky because we were inside the whole time. And the thing is, though, when you're at the draft, it's a little bit like being at a game. You don't always learn things first. In fact, you tend to learn it last, because if you're watching from TV, you have all these analysts and all these broadcasters who are getting cues from backstage, or they kind of know what's going on because they have to be able to do the right broadcast. So we were the last people to know that the Broncos had traded down. Excuse me, the TV cameras come over and they're ready in your section because you're going to be up. So they tell you to cheer. And we're standing there cheering, and then we stop, and the guy's like, keep going. I'm like, no, it looks like the Steelers. Excuse me. And sure enough, we traded with the Steelers, and so the cameramen are running over to the Steelers, like, get the Steelers fans.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
One of my favorite things, and I've mentioned this a few times since the draft, about the, when they go shoving the cameras in the fans' faces at the draft, is that my favorite moment is that awkward moment when you see the player's name announced and that it's clear to that fan they have no idea who that is. And yet,
Absolutely.
once the player's name is announced, woo, Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
go. Like, I have no idea. Am I happy about this? We picked a guy. Woohoo! You know, it
I know.
is
But you
clear.
can totally.
Yeah, it is clear that person has no idea who that guy is. But he's ours, so yay him, I guess. And
Yeah.
I always laugh when I see it. It makes me laugh every single time.
Well, especially this year, because I wasn't seeing the broadcast, but you could hear it, right?
Yeah.
So when the Giants picked Daniel Jones, you could tell they were like, what?
Yeah, it was hellfire and brimstone. It
And
was
then
was
the
awful.
Raiders, when the Raiders made their first pick,
yeah.
actually they were before that. No one knew who the pick was. I mean, the guy wasn't even there because he didn't expect to get picked in the first round. So the Raiders fans, it was dead quiet for a second. And then they started cheering. But the cheering was like, okay.
Yay, we picked the dude.
And they're on their phones. Who is this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, waiting for the cameras, the red light to go off so I can check my phone and find out who the hell this is. Yeah. It made me laugh every time I saw it. So,
And then when the Broncos, because we traded down, and Devin Bush was available
yeah.
at 10, and then I think he actually got picked at 11 or like.
No, he went 10 to the Steelers. That's who the Steelers moved up for.
They traded with us, right? So, so I was kind of mad, like, I was just sure that that's what the Broncos were going to do since he was there, and then we traded down, and I was thinking to myself when the cameras came over because were we 20, whatever we traded to?
Yeah, 20.
Yeah. The cameras come over, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope I know who the player is. Because we've been talking a lot about who we'd pick at 10, and there's only so many players you worry about because you know who's going to be there. But at 20, I was like, shoot, I don't know. So when they said Noah Fant, I really like Noah Fant. But I was also excited that I could legitimately scream for a player I knew who he was. So.
Yeah, this is a common problem for Bear fans for years, especially when it came to our first-round picks. The Bears would always pull a fast one on the fan base, and, there would always be that guy, no matter where we were picking in the first round, whether it was high, in the middle, in the late end of the draft. It was like, and the Chicago Bears select Shea McClellan from Boise State. I'm like, who the hell is Shea McClellan?
Yeah.
What?
And where's Boise State again?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. Every single year, it would happen. And this guy is the gem of our draft class. He's our first round pick, and I've never heard of him before.
Yeah,
And it would make me crazy every time the Bears would do it. So
how did you feel when the Bears traded up one spot to get Trubisky?
Oh God. Well, here's the thing. My issue was never with the player. It was with the position, because as we ranted on earlier about in 2017, we didn't have an offense.
Right.
We didn't make any moves in the offseason to improve our wide receiving core or anything like that. Alshon Jeffrey left for Philadelphia, so we had nothing in our receiving core. We had no tight ends to speak of or anything like that. We had Jordan Howard, and that was it, because we hadn't drafted Tariq Cohen yet. We drafted him in 2017. So it's like we are the kind of team that needs to build the team and then plug the quarterback in, not the other way around. I wasn't trusting the process, if you will, at that point. So I was more upset that we drafted a quarterback. That was the last thing I wanted the Bears to do. And then they went and drafted. Not only did we get it, and then we get a quarterback, we traded up for one. And it's just like we took our limited draft capital to move up one spot. And, we drafted the last position. I would have been happier with a kicker at 2 than a quarterback with the offense that we had. It's like this didn't happen, and it did. And in hindsight, I was right and I was wrong. Trubisky and drafting him was absolutely the right move, but I was right in the fact that we didn't have an offense, and the team suffered greatly for it in 2017.
Right.
So I won and I lost that bet all at the same time. So, but I'll take it. So but speaking of your draft, you get Noah Fant in the first round. He's a tight end, and apparently Flacco has a love affair with all the tight ends that he's played with over the years. And then after that, John Elway didn't see a trade he didn't like. You only drafted 6 players and you traded for 3 of them. Dalton Reiser in the second round at 41, and then you make a trade to come right back at 42 because Drew Lock, for some reason, is still sitting there. So Elway doesn't, he's like, okay, go ahead and make the move. You pick 41st and 42nd. Drew Lock finally comes off the board, and now he's going to be at Denver, which I believe is where he wanted to go all along. And like you said earlier, he might be the future of the franchise. He might be, Joe Flacco might be his placeholder and whatnot. But it's intriguing what could happen with Drew Lock if he lives up to his draft stock.
Right. And we all felt like the chess play Elway did there was brilliant, because we got the quarterback that a lot of people had been mocking to us, and a lot of people on our staff and a lot of fans thought that Broncos might pick Drew Lock in the first round, and it was very 50-50 how people felt about that, how fans felt about that. Sure. And I, like you, was in like you a couple of years ago, was like, don't draft the quarterback in the first round. Like, and not probably for the exact same reasons, but, same idea. Like, we have a lot of other things we need to get, and I'm not sold on this guy. So you pick him in the first round, and you're basically saying to him, you're our franchise, you're our starter. And even knowing that we had Flacco and that he wouldn't be the starter right away, you pick him in the first round, you still make that a little iffy. And so the fact that we got him as as our third pick, second one in the third round there, was like the best of all those worlds. We got a quarterback, we got a young guy, but he knows that really he's coming in to be trained to be the head guy. Yeah. And he's not coming in to compete for that this year. And so that we're not going to have a quarterback controversy, we're not going to have a competition, but we are going to have a guy who knows he's the future. So, he's also going to take it seriously about learning from Joe Flacco and learning from, everybody. So, and we didn't spend as much money on him, and we got 2 really key pieces before him. We got a tight end, and we got an offensive lineman, which we definitely needed. So in so many ways, John Elway really nailed this draft, which is his second in a row, and possibly only his second one actually overall. So, but it feels good to think, he's kind of figuring this out. So, it bodes well for future drafts that he's not going to make the Paxton Lynch mistake again.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate move across the board. It kind of made sense at the time. I mean, sure. Everyone was grasping. The Cowboys were mad that we got him. And, look how that turned out. They got Dak Prescott and we got Paxton Lynch, and we totally lost that. Yeah. But you never know. I mean, it's really tough with these college quarterbacks to predict how well they will do. And I honestly feel like you get lucky half the time, but it's so much work behind the scenes that fans don't see. You can't just watch a couple of tape cut-ups on Twitter. And even if you're a real film guru and you go back and look at a lot of film, you're really only looking at film at some games, So these coaches and GMs who go see the guys play in the Senior Bowl and the East-West Bowl or the North-South game or whatever, and then they talk with them and they meet with coaches and they do their due diligence, I think that's when they really find out if a player is going to fit well and have the potential that they need them to have. And so I think as fans, it's really hard to, even harder for us, but also hard for the coaches and the scouts and the GMs to know for sure what college quarterback is going to actually adapt well to the pro style of football. Yeah, it's a gamble. It's a gamble either way, because how many people have been drafted high This guy is a can't miss prospect. There's no way he doesn't succeed. And you want to talk quarterbacks? Let's talk Robert Griffin. The Redskins give up a king's ransom of draft picks to be able to move up to take him, not the guy that Mike Shanahan wanted. So in the 4th round, he takes Cousins in the 4th round. That's the guy he actually liked, and that's the guy he ended up actually having a career in being a good quarterback. A 4th round pick over the can't miss Heisman Trophy number 2 overall pick, and that ends up being the better move, taking that guy in the 4th round instead of giving up our future to take this guy. So that's the gamble that is the NFL draft. The Bears give up 2 first-round picks for Khalil Mack. In the past, that's a move that's burned us, but it had immediate pay, dividends with the way that he played for us last year, and we'll continue to see if Ryan Pace can maneuver his way to keep the Bears afloat until we have a first-round pick again. So it is all a gamble. The trades, the moving up, moving down, the guys that you pick, the homework that you put in to somebody, that gut feeling that you just have to follow, because I got a feeling about this guy, and then that feeling is that guy he misses his mom and he can't do anything if she's not around kind of thing. I mean, it's always something. So it's not a science for sure. As much as they treat it that way and they talk about it and they have their methods to their madness and all that kind of stuff, it is anything but.
Right, and especially with the quarterback position, more than any other position, the intangibles are so important. Is he going to study? Is he going to be a good leader? Is he going to be able to be the guy, but have it be for real? And because we had that with Case Keenum.
Did you ever hear the story about Jamarcus Russell?
Which one?
Well, my favorite one was that they knew he wasn't watching tape. They knew he wasn't watching film on the opponents and everything. So one day they sent him home with a box full of blank tapes. And then he comes back into the facility the next day and they asked him if he watched the tapes, and he said, "Yeah, of course I did."
Yeah.
And
nice.
What did you think? And he was like, he started talking about film that didn't exist.
Yeah.
He had a handful of blank tapes.
Right,
that he
and
says he watched, and he didn't.
It showed in his career for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely did. So, but that was my favorite story about Jamarcus Russell, and he was the guy in 2007. He was the number 1 pick. Everyone had to take him. The Raiders would have been nuts not to take him, so on and so forth. He was one of the biggest busts in the history of the draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when everything, his arm, his size, he could move, everything. And then, like you said, it was the intangibles that did him in. This is a guy that didn't like to study. He didn't like to prepare. He was lazy and everything else, but he could put it together in college when the lights were on Saturdays. But, when it's your job and that's all you have to do and you don't want to do any of it, that's going to end up killing you big time.
Yeah. And like a couple weeks ago when Bart Starr passed away, and everyone was, we did a story related to, the Broncos, and I came across the quote from Bart Starr that has been used famously, but about you'll play a lot of guys with more talent, but if you outwork them, you can often beat them. Mm-hmm. And I did not realize that Bart Starr was actually not anything super coming out of college. He was drafted 200th, the 200th player in the 17th round, and it was just because Vince Lombardi actually, saw something in him, thought his decision making and his football IQ, and some of his athletic skill, had a ton of potential, and he was right. So, if you had said to anybody before Bart Starr became Bart Starr, this guy's not going to do anything. Look at, he was mediocre at Alabama. He's okay, but you had a coach who was able to look past that and see the things that were going to actually be important, and he took a gamble and it worked out quite well.
Yeah,
but
all he was a Hall of Famer.
Talent, yeah. It was much more on working for it, and I think Peyton Manning was kind of like that.
Oh yeah, but he had the can't miss talent to go along with it, though.
He did. I mean, he has the pedigree, but he would tell you time and again he's not super athletic.
Yeah.
like so many players and so many quarterbacks, he will outthink everybody else because he will study harder than anybody.
Yeah, he could throw he could throw a needle through the eye of a needle from 50 yards. The guy had an amazing accurate arm. I'd never seen anyone make the throws that Peyton did, but no one would accuse him of being an athlete if you've ever seen Peyton Manning run.
Right.
He had the heaviest feet on a quarterback I think I've ever seen, but he had twinkle toes when he was in the pocket. He could move around and find the receivers and give those guys time.
Yeah.
He had his gifts, but being athletic probably isn't something you could accuse Peyton Manning of being if you ever saw him run. But it's you're right. But I mean, what did Bart Starr ever do? He was only a first ballot Hall of Famer and the MVP of the first 2 Super Bowls. But whatever, dude.
Right.
So, but looking ahead to 2019. Let's look at some of the storylines of what you have to look forward to. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, I shudder to think what your defense is going to be capable of, because not only do you have Von Miller on one side, you got Bradley Chubb on the other, you're adding a Bryce Callahan into the mix, and Vic Fangio is pulling the strings now, and he definitely has more talent to work with in Denver than he started with in Chicago. So he's not playing behind the 8 ball like he did when he first came to Chicago and slowly but surely building. He's in a pretty good position to have some pretty good success right from the jump.
Yeah. And you know what I love about him that you can elaborate on? The thing that I've noticed is I absolutely love his press conferences because he is like so nonchalant and like gives no props to anybody. It's like, yeah, he's pretty good. He's learning. He's okay. He did pretty well today. Like with Von Miller, he basically has downplayed any of Von Miller's greatness. It's like he's improving. He has some work to do. And I'm like, I love this guy, and I love Von Miller, but I like it when you have a coach who is not starstruck, and he's like, listen, everybody can learn, everybody can improve. You're not doing everything you need to. And I've actually noticed he's given more props to other guys he's coached on previous teams, sometimes in passing rather than, talking about how great Von Miller is or whatever. So I absolutely love it because I think it's the kind of thing that will keep this defense from getting soft, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's something that you'll notice. We heard a lot about the 49ers when he came to Chicago, and guys like Navarro Bowman and Justin Smith and Patrick Willis and everything like that. So I'm sure you'll get a healthy dose of Khalil Mack or Akeem Hicks or Roquan Smith and talking about their accomplishments. And somehow he's talking about the Broncos while he's doing that. So the thing that the media loved about Fangio was that he had 0 F's to give during press conference. Like, he does not care.
0.
He will just answer the question straight up, and you will, what? Did he just say that? Whoa. Like, I was like, this guy's telling the truth. Somebody's got to tell him not to do that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. You're exactly right. I mean, he was praising Roquan Smith for, his talent, and he was talking about how, he's probably one of the most talented, linebackers he's worked with, I think. And I love it. I love that he is who he is, and he says exactly what he wants. And you don't feel there are no cliches. There's no coach speak. It's like, and he even gives the reporters a hard time sometimes when they ask a dumb question. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, someone's got to tell him that was a stupid question.
You know what? Vic's been around too long. He has been around too long. He's seen too much. This was a guy who was on the coaching staff when Ray Lewis and company won that Super Bowl back in 2000. And actually, he wasn't on that staff. He was in San Francisco by then. But this is a guy that's coached Ray Lewis. This is a guy that he just came from coaching Khalil Mack and all those great years in San Francisco and how dominant that defense was. He's seen talent everywhere. He's probably not impressed by what talent or anything like that. He's impressed by whether we win or we lose. And I pray that this works out for him, because he has been an assistant for 30 years. He has been waiting for this shot for a long time, and he did what he had to do. He got the opportunity with Denver. We in Chicago very sad to see him go. I would have loved to see him be able to finish what he started with the Bears and hopefully culminating in a Lombardi. But I guarantee if the Bears end up winning a Super Bowl, he'll get a ring. I can't see how he wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Really?
I do. Because we had nothing when he came in 2015, and he's even talked about that, the crazy bastard. We had nothing. We had less than practice squad guys when I came in 2015. We had zero. And look at what we were able to do in all that time. And I think he was praising Ryan Pace while he was doing it. But that's the kind of stuff he was saying. Is like we had nothing. We had zero, and we had less than nothing when I came to Chicago, and this is what I had to work with, and so on and so forth. That's the guy that you're getting. He's no nonsense. And
totally.
It's like being 60 years old works for him because he's too old to care. He's just going to go out there, do his job, say what he says. You're either going to print it or you're not. I got a job to do. You do yours.
I know. And the great thing, every player who has been interviewed in the last couple of weeks, essentially they say the same kind of thing. So it just proves that this isn't just an act, or it's not just one player's perception. This is the way it is. And several of them have pointed out that they do not want to screw up because they watch film as a full team, and Fangio will call them out as, making a dumb play in front of everybody. And they're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the guy that that made the mistake that everyone's going to laugh at for being so stupid because I didn't study my assignment. I didn't execute my assignment, etc. And even Peyton Manning, who played under Fangio, kind of played under him 20 years ago when Fangio was the defensive coordinator when Manning was a second, third, and fourth year player at the Colts. He said, Fangio is out to win every practice. He wants his defense beating the offense every practice, regardless of what practice it is. So, he is serious about this, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, he's a no nonsense guy, and I hope it translates well to him being a head coach as opposed to him running defenses for the last 20 years and so on. Because that was something that I didn't get a chance to. We were talking about Vance Joseph and where things went wrong for him, how he's good at getting a defense ready or that kind of thing. There's just something that people take for granted as far as there's a huge difference between being a defensive coordinator and being a head coach and having to run everything. And we've seen time and time again the people that are best suited to be the top lieutenant as opposed to the general, like a Wade Phillips or maybe a Vance Joseph. He's in Arizona now. Maybe that he'll be able to work his defensive magic in Arizona. Another one that I thought was a kind of a Wade Phillips in training was Todd Bowles. I didn't see him being a head coach. Now, he had mild success in New York. He had not much help in the roster during the time that he was there. But, I always kind of felt he's going to be a savage as a defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, which is why I wanted him so bad after Fangio left. Unfortunately, Todd Bowles committed to Tampa Bay before Fangio took the Denver job, or else why wouldn't he have taken the Chicago job? Why wouldn't he want that? So, but go ahead.
It's interesting that you point that out because earlier my comments about Vance Joseph, he also was only a defensive coordinator for a year, and he had been a defensive backs coach for however many years. So he even had limited experience of kind of really being in charge of a full unit, which is, again, not the same thing as the team, but still that has, you have to keep up with all your different position coaches and their units and making sure that they're, that everybody's on the same page, that you're game planning for the full defense, not just getting your defensive backs ready to, meet their assignments. So he just didn't have long enough in a position where you could learn that. And with Vic Fangio, the other thing is when you're a coordinator, offense or defense, if you're a coordinator for 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, you get used to, you actually start to also really understand how your part works into the full game plan.
Yeah.
When you're new at that position, I think you're probably really focused on just, you're just getting, you're just focusing on your defense or on your offense, and you're probably overwhelmed enough with just keeping track of all the different position units within that. But the more you get comfortable with that, and especially the more you work with the same head coach, you really understand the full game plan, and you could probably run over and be the offensive coordinator if you had to, because of all that time being together and understanding how they all fit together. And I have to believe that after 30 years of being a coordinator, he's got a very good idea of how that fits into the full game plan. So he doesn't have head coaching experience, but he has been around and working into that head coaching, arena for so long, because he's been so experienced at the coordinator position and very successful at the coordinator position. So, he's going to be very trustworthy for any head coach to be like, yeah, let you help me, or you're part of this too. It's not just me standing up here, being on the sideline calling all the plays.
Well, I mean, that was one of the other parallels. We talked before we were recording about how crazy the parallels between the Bears and the LA Rams were. How we basically were a year behind. We did everything that they did, and one of those other things that I forgot to mention was we hire the young offensive guru type coach to mentor our second year quarterback, and then hire, or in our case, keep the veteran defensive coordinator. You run the defense. Yeah. You run the defense. I'll run the offense. There's like a 20-year age difference between the two, and whatnot, and we'll take it from there, kind of thing. So I mean, it's that's and in Fangio, in his last 2 years in Chicago, was the last year of John Fox and the first year of Matt Nagy. Talk about a night and day situation from an older veteran coach who's been around the block, been to Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff, to a guy that was literally wet behind the ears about being a head coach and learning how to run a team, and then also seeing him take to it like a fish to water. Yeah. As far as, Matt Nagy and getting those players to respond to him and buy into what he was trying to do last year and everything. It was a huge contrast from one year to the next, not only in results, but just in the culture itself. When he came to Chicago, it was one of the last places in the NFL you wanted to go. As he leaves Chicago, it's become a destination. So he's seen it on both ends, and he's going to bring that to Denver.
Yeah. It's very exciting because it's all very promising. Partly because it's the exact opposite of what we've had for the last 2 years. Right. But even if it weren't the exact opposite, it really definitely fits with our culture. Having him come in and just be like, this is the way it is. You're all going to work hard. And more than one of these guys has talked about how it doesn't matter if you are a first round draft pick or you are a superstar. He's kind of looking up and down the roster like, you got to perform for me now if you want to be on this roster. Yeah. So Von Miller, whatever, if you're not doing your job, you're sitting on the bench. And I think that culture change, well, it isn't really a change. It's like getting back to kind of what the Broncos have always had as their culture, which is a very, kind of work hard, fight tooth and nail. You're the underdog most of the time, scratch and claw for what you're going to get. We're not a Hollywood team. We're not, we're not full of a bunch of superstars. We don't get a ton of national media attention generally. We did for a while with Manning, but having Vic Fangio's personality come in, I think fits with what we kind of see ourselves as a franchise. And so it seems like it's really, really melding well. He's getting a lot of praise from the players, even, because he's tough. So I think it's gonna be a really good year. Even if we're not playoff bound, it cannot be worse than it was. It can't be.
That's absolutely how I felt a year ago when Matt Nagy came into town. It was like it can't get any worse than it was. I mean, it can't. It can't. Like, I know we managed to win some games last year. Even if we win less games with this new coach, it can't be as bad on the field as it was in 2017. It just can't. There's no way. It's like I can see us losing some games or what have you, or whatever because of inexperience by the head coach. But I think we're definitely going to play better. We just have to. It can't get any worse than it was. So speaking of can't get any worse than it was, real quick before I let you go with your offense, you have Joe Flacco.
Awesome segue, by the way.
Yes, I am a master. What can I say? But, Philip Lindsay, how is he going to be ready for the regular season? Because I know he got hurt late in the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's not doing any real practicing yet. I think they do anticipate him being ready by training camp, but possibly not, full go, but definitely week 1. So at this point, nobody really knows. Him and Emmanuel Sanders are keys to our offense. And so, I think everyone's just crossing their fingers that by the time regular season starts, they're ready to go. And I imagine, especially even for Emmanuel Sanders with the Achilles, it'll be a couple of games before he's full speed. But we're looking at both of them being back.
Right.
And
so,
strong.
any other storylines for the team in general that we should keep an eye on going into 2019?
Well, I think it'll be interesting with the two storylines, and we kind of touched on one of them already, which is, we don't have many different defensive players. We did add Kareem Jackson and Bryce Callahan, but basically, our defensive line is the same. We've got the 2 edge rushers. We have most of our secondary, but we hopefully got 2 guys who are going to, be starters, and we're not going to have the rotation that we had, of like 6. We were on like our 7th cornerback by the end of the season last year. It was ridiculous. So, but watching the way these same guys essentially play that more disguised quintessential Vic Fangio defense, I think will be really interesting because we've had players complaining about that for 3 years. That everything they were doing was too telegraphed. All the offenses knew they were scheming. They knew what they were going to do because they knew how they were going to cover, and there was nothing. There were no surprises and no disguises to put the offense kind of off kilter. So our defense being able to really be more of a game wrecker to any offense, I think is going to be a good storyline. And we're hoping so anyway. And I think the other storyline will be, because we have not had a truly great tight end, nor have we had a quarterback or a scheme that really utilized the tight end. And now we have both. And so I think our offense, as much as we have relied on Emmanuel Sanders and even last year relied on Philip Lindsay, I'm sure like I said, both of those two will still be key players because they're both really good at their position and obviously key positions for a good offense. But given that we have Joe Flacco and that we have the number, a first round pick is a tight end, I think we will see a lot more of a tight end heavy offensive scheme than we've had in years, and that will be exciting and totally different for Broncos fans.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like last year when we brought in Allen Robinson, we brought in Taylor Gabriel, we brought in Trey Burton to go along with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. I was like, now we have options. We're not going to have 9 guys in the box because you have to worry about Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel, and we can open this thing up some. They're not going to be able to see us coming from a mile away. It's just not going to be possible. Number one, because Nagy's scheme alone will not allow us to be predictable, and number two, we actually have talent you have to respect when you put them out on the field. And now it's going to be, this is a tight end. We know Flacco likes to throw to the tight end, and while we're focusing on the tight end, we forgot about Emmanuel Sanders or Philip Lindsay coming out of the backfield and things like that. So it definitely opens things up, and just the possibilities are alone are enough to make you excited about what's to come.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we even have like we just said, like a quarterback who likes the tight end and a good tight end, plus a new offensive coordinator who, in theory, working under Kyle Shanahan, really understands the scheme to utilize a tight end, is going to take so much pressure off Emmanuel Sanders and even Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton, who were rookies last year and did well, but it's hard to put all that on a rookie to, basically have to get every pass. We had no options. We had no surprises. It was like, it's going to these two guys.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe I'm going to hand it off, but guess what? It was just so embarrassing, honestly. Like my son, who was 8 and played flag football, could do a far better bootleg than Case Keenum could. Like, seriously, put him out there. I think he's got a shot.
Yeah, it can't get any worse. That was like the running theme. It can't get any worse. Let's just.
And I guarantee my 8-year-old is not overthrowing Demaryius Thomas on the 2-yard line, to win the game over the Chiefs. Guarantee it.
Guarantee it. Because he's only 3'6". There's no way he can throw it 8 feet over Demaryius. Him throwing it 3 feet too high puts it right in Demaryius Thomas's catch radius. It's perfect. So it can't get any worse.
Exactly.
So there we go. So Laurie, thanks so much for your time.
Thank
I know
you.
it's getting late over there for you, so I appreciate you sticking it out. And we look forward to having you back. It'll be a short break between now and week number 2, which is when our teams will be battling each other. Looks like we're going to be one of those America's Game of the Week games on Fox with the 3:00 start and everything. So,
nice.
A nice matchup between the Bears and their former defensive coordinator, and see if he uses the force against us
I know.
on that one.
I'm really looking forward to that game. There are a couple games on our schedule that I think are really, aside from the usual AFC West rivalries, the Bears and the Packers games I think are going to be really fun.
And aren't they back to back, the Bears and the Packers?
I don't think so. Packers are like, oh wait, yes, they are. They are back to back.
Yeah, it's home for the Bears and then on the road for
Packers.
On the road for Green Bay.
Yep.
Yeah, week 2, week 3. Yeah, how about that? So you get those out of the way after Monday night with the Raiders to start off the season, then home for the Bears, on the road for Green Bay. So you get those.
Right. It'll
It's
be
an interesting September.
It'll be
for
an
you.
exciting three weeks in a row. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but Laurie, thanks so much for coming back. Where can we see you online if we want to keep up with you?
All right, I'm on Twitter at DocLLV, so DOCLLV, and you can also read my work at milehighreport.com on SB Nation.
All right, Laurie Lattimore-Volkmann, thanks so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, Larry. It was great. Enjoyed it.
Remember, guys, promo code ACAA for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek, and Bears100 for a 50% deposit bonus at mybookie.ag. So if you want to get in on those deals, those are the promo codes you want to use to be able to take advantage of them. So that is going to do it, guys. Like I said, love talking to Laurie. Look forward to having her on week 2. See how the preseason and training camp went for the Broncos. How did it go week 1 against those Raiders when we go to Mile High Country for week number 2? That's when we'll have Laurie back to preview our impending matchup. Coming up next, part number 3 of the AFC West Preview. We'll be joined by Travis Wakeman from Bolt Beat on fansided.com. He'll be joining us to help preview the LA Chargers, who are the second-place finisher. Also a 12-4 record, but had a perfect 9-0 record on the road last year. 8-0 on the road. Won their first playoff game against Baltimore, who won their division last season, and then ran into the buzzsaw that was the New England Patriots, who were undefeated at Gillette Stadium last year. So something had to give. You either had a perfect home team or the perfect road team, and it ended up being the perfect home team that walked away with the win. And it's like the Chargers never had a chance. They were down 35-7 at halftime or something like that. So we'll talk to Travis and find out what happened. Was it just the brilliance of Brady and Belichick just doing it again and getting themselves to another Super Bowl, or did the Chargers finally run out of road luck in 2018? So we'll have Travis on Tuesday is when that episode is going to drop to talk about the Chargers, and then a few days after that we'll wrap up the AFC West with Greg Florkowski of Arrowhead Addict, also from fansided.com. He will be helping us wrap up the AFC West while talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Then we'll move on to the NFC East and talk about the Cowboys, the Giants, the Redskins, and Eagles before moving on to the NFC North, where we wrap things up with our beloved Chicago Bears at the very, very end. So before you know it, it'll be there. I mean, we're almost in – we're already 8-9 days into June already. It's going to be gone before you know it. Then we'll be in July, and then at the end of the July is training camp, and then we got the preseason, and then good days ahead in the regular season. So it'll be here before you know it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. So come back on Tuesday when we'll have part number 3 featuring the LA Chargers. So until then, my name is Larry D, and this has been Bears Talk Underground.